The doctor said the word pregnant so calmly that Milo Serrano almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because if he did not laugh, he might admit that his entire life had just tilted sideways in less than 30 seconds. He sat rigidly on the edge of the exam chair, staring at the test results in his hands while one thought repeated louder than everything else. I cannot lose my life to this. Milo was 29, an Omega, and finally building a name for himself as an independent architectural lighting designer after years of taking whatever contracts kept his rent paid. 3 days ago, he had landed the biggest presentation of his career. Today, he was 8 weeks pregnant. He wanted the baby. That realization had arrived instantly and terrified him almost as much as the diagnosis, because wanting this child meant having something enormous to lose. Then the doctor quietly confirmed the alpha father listed by the genetic screening. Dash O'Rourke. Milo closed his eyes. Of course. Of every alpha in New York, fate had apparently selected the one man Milo had hated since college. Their rivalry had started over design competitions and sharpened through 4 years of arguments, sarcastic smiles, and Dash's infuriating habit of acting as if every room belonged to him. Years later, one reunion, one unusually honest conversation, and one reckless night had destroyed the clean simplicity of hating each other. They had separated the next morning with wounded pride and no promises. Milo had expected never to discuss it again. He certainly had not expected to call Dash and say, "I'm pregnant." 40 minutes later, the clinic door opened. Dash entered without knocking, still wearing the dark suit he had probably abandoned some executive meeting in. He did not ask whether the test was wrong. He did not accuse Milo of anything. He crossed directly to the desk, set his phone face down, and asked the doctor, "What does he need?" Milo's stomach tightened. There it was. Dash Rourke, solving him like another expensive development problem. "I don't need you managing this." Dash turned. "I didn't say you did. Your face said it." "My face has apparently been causing problems since college." Under different circumstances, Milo might have laughed. Instead, he gripped the papers harder. "I'm keeping the baby." Dash went completely still. Milo forced himself onward. "But this is my body, my career, and my decision. Being the father doesn't give you ownership of any of them." Something shifted in Dash's expression. Not anger. Hurt, perhaps, gone too quickly to name. Then he pulled a chair closer but stopped several feet away, deliberately leaving space between them. "Agreed." Milo blinked. "That's it. What were you expecting? A contract? A lawyer? Possibly a hostile acquisition?" Dash almost smiled. "The decisions about your body are yours. The child is ours. My responsibility is to make sure neither of you has to wonder whether I'll disappear." It was annoyingly reasonable. Worse, it sounded sincere. By evening, both mothers knew. That was Milo's second mistake. His mother heard 8 weeks pregnant, demanding freelance schedule, and tiny fourth-floor walk-up, and immediately started worrying. Dash's mother heard the same information and apparently called her son before Milo had finished his dinner. The resulting family conference was less a conversation than an intervention. Dash's penthouse was 15 minutes from Milo's clinic. It had elevators, security, spare rooms, and enough space for Milo to work. Milo rejected the idea 3 times. Dash rejected it twice. Their mothers ignored them both. The argument might have continued for hours if Milo had not stood too quickly, gone pale, and grabbed the kitchen counter until the dizziness passed. Dash was beside him instantly. He did not touch Milo. He simply moved a chair behind him, placed a glass of water within reach, and told everyone else, "Give him a minute." No fuss. No public panic. No treating him like glass. For the first time all day, Milo felt his shoulders loosen. 2 nights later, he stood inside Dash's penthouse with one suitcase, his laptop bag, and the pregnancy folder tucked beneath his arm. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed Manhattan in gold. Everything else was polished stone, pale wood, and expensive silence. Dash stood across the kitchen island. Between them lay a single brass key. 9 months, Milo said. "Then I'm gone." Dash slid the key toward him. 9 months. Milo picked it up. Their fingers nearly touched. "And you don't control me." "Understood. And I'm not giving up my work." "I wouldn't ask you to." Milo narrowed his eyes. "Why are you being so agreeable?" Dash looked at him for a long second, and for once there was no college rival in his expression, no wealthy alpha accustomed to winning. There was simply a man who looked almost as frightened as Milo felt. Because you're not the only one whose life changed when that doctor called. Milo looked down at the key in his palm. An hour earlier, moving here had felt like surrender. Now, unexpectedly, it felt like the first door opening. Then Dash glanced toward Milo's suitcase and said, "There's one problem." Milo's suspicion returned immediately. "What?" Dash nodded toward the hallway. "Our mothers decided which bedroom should be yours." Milo stared at him. Dash exhaled. "They chose the one connected to mine." The bedroom situation lasted exactly 11 seconds before Milo pointed at the connecting door and said, "That stays locked." Dash glanced at it, then at Milo. "Fine. And you knock." "Obviously. And no alpha hovering." Dash lifted one eyebrow. "Define hovering." Milo hated that question because Dash had already spent the morning doing it without technically doing it. A car had collected Milo's work equipment from his apartment. Building staff had carried everything upstairs before Milo could touch a box. The doorman knew his name. The private elevator had been programmed to recognize his key. Somewhere between breakfast and noon, Milo had discovered that Dash O'Rourke did not simply occupy spaces. He changed how they operated. One phone call from him rearranged schedules. One quiet instruction sent 3 employees moving. Milo had spent college believing Dash was arrogant because people always made room for him. Living here revealed something more complicated. People made room because Dash expected things to work, and somehow they usually did, which was exactly why Milo refused to become another thing Dash managed. By afternoon, he found a corner beside the eastern windows and began turning it into a temporary studio. Material samples covered the dining table. Lighting catalogs occupied a chair. 2 portable lamps appeared beside a sculpture that probably cost more than Milo's car. Dash emerged from his office, stopped, and stared. Milo folded his arms. "Say it." "There are 17 pieces of paper on my dining table." "Congratulations. You can count." Dash looked at the lamps. "Those are staying. I work for a living." "So do I." "You own half the buildings you walk into." "That is not the same thing." Dash's jaw tightened. For one dangerous second, they were 21 again, competing over a university design project and treating compromise like a contagious disease. Then Dash surprised him. "What do you need?" Milo blinked. "Excuse me." "To work properly." "What do you need?" That was how they ended up negotiating their first real rules. Milo controlled every medical decision involving his body. Dash would be informed about anything directly affecting the baby. Milo would keep working unless his doctor told him otherwise. Dash could offer help, but Milo could refuse it. No surprise drivers. No rearranging appointments without permission. No using money as the final argument. Dash added one condition of his own. "If you feel sick, you tell me. I can take care of myself." "I know." The answer came too quickly to argue with. "I am asking you to tell me anyway." Milo reluctantly agreed. Their truce survived until Thursday, when Dash came home during one of Milo's video meetings and stopped behind the laptop. Milo was presenting a lighting plan for a boutique hotel renovation when a rendering appeared on screen. Dash stared at it. "That property is mine." Milo muted himself. "Of course it is. Rourke Development acquired it last month. Please go acquire something somewhere else." "I am working." Instead of leaving, Dash studied Milo's calculations. "The engineering team approved those fixtures." "Then your engineering team missed the glare problem." Dash's expression cooled instantly. "They are among the best in the city." Milo pointed toward the rendering. "And they are still wrong. That glass reflects direct light across the lobby after sunset. Anyone entering from the elevators gets hit with it at eye level." Dash looked unconvinced. Milo pulled up his simulation. "See the angle? Change the mounting position by 6 degrees and use the narrower beam. Same design. Better comfort. Lower energy waste." Silence. Dash took out his phone. Milo sighed. "Please do not fire anyone because I insulted a light fixture." Dash ignored him and called someone. "Run Serrano's numbers on the hotel lobby before installation." He paused. "No, I do not care that it was already approved. Check it." Then he walked away. Milo stared after him, irritated by how irritatingly powerful that had been. 2 hours later, Dash returned. "You were right." Milo looked up slowly. "Could you repeat that? I want to record it. Do not ruin this." Dash placed a printed engineering report beside him. The revised plan would prevent an expensive correction after opening. More importantly, Dash had credited Milo's solution by name. Milo stared at the page. "You told them it was mine." Dash frowned. It was. Such a simple answer should not have mattered. It did. That night, pregnancy nausea woke Milo shortly after 2. He shuffled into the kitchen expecting silence and found Dash standing at the stove in gray sweatpants and an old college sweatshirt, staring suspiciously at a skillet. The terrifying developer, who could make an engineering department redo approved work with one sentence, was holding a spatula like it had personally betrayed him. "What are you doing?" Milo asked. Dash looked almost guilty. "Your mother said plain scrambled eggs are one of the few things you can tolerate when you wake up sick." Milo stared at him. "You called my mother?" "She called me. Repeatedly." "That sounds more believable." Dash slid a plate toward him. The eggs were uneven and slightly overcooked. Milo took one bite. Dash watched with absurd concentration. "They are terrible," Milo said. Dash exhaled. "I followed the instructions." Milo took another bite. "I did not say I was stopping." Something softened between them. Not attraction exactly. Not forgiveness. Just the strange comfort of discovering that the man Milo had spent years resenting could stand barefoot in a kitchen at 2 in the morning and fail spectacularly at scrambled eggs because Milo had been nauseous. The next morning, Milo carried his coffee toward the dining table and stopped. Dash's expensive sculpture was gone. In its place stood an empty work surface beside the windows. "Where is your terrifying art?" Milo asked. Dash did not look up from his tablet. "Storage." "Why?" "You need the light." Milo stared at the cleared space, then at him. Yesterday this had been Dash's penthouse, and Milo had merely been permitted inside it. Today, for the first time, there was room that belonged to him. He set down his coffee. "Dash." "What?" "Thank you." Dash finally looked up. "You are welcome." Milo started arranging his samples before the moment became embarrassing. Behind him, Dash said, "One more thing. The hotel team wants you at Monday's design review." Milo turned. "Why?" "Because I told them the person who caught their mistake should be in the room when they fix it." The offer hung between them, larger than a cleared table or terrible eggs. Dash was not merely helping Milo anymore. He was trusting him. And accepting that meeting meant Milo would have to begin trusting Dash back. By Monday morning, Milo had convinced himself the hotel design review was just another meeting. Then the elevator opened onto the 42nd floor of Rourke Development, and 30 people seemed to straighten at once. Assistants lowered their voices. 2 executives abandoned a conversation mid-sentence. A man carrying blueprints stepped aside before Dash even reached him. Dash barely reacted. He simply walked through the office with the quiet certainty of someone whose last name was printed on the building directory downstairs. Milo followed with his portfolio under one arm and suddenly understood something he had missed in college. Dash had not merely become successful. He had become powerful enough that people studied his expression before deciding whether they were having a good day. Inside the conference room, that power became uncomfortable. The engineering director shook Dash's hand, glanced at Milo, and said, "We can bring your guest somewhere more comfortable while we handle the technical review." Milo smiled tightly. There it was. Omega. Pregnant. Guest. 3 labels, none of them his profession. Before Milo could answer, Dash pulled out the chair beside his own. "Milo is the lighting designer who identified the glare problem your team missed." Silence landed across the table. Dash opened the revised report. "He stays." Milo sat down before his face could reveal how much those 2 words affected him. The meeting began badly and improved only because Milo refused to disappear inside it. When someone suggested replacing the entire fixture package, he explained why that would waste money without solving the reflection angle. When another engineer questioned his simulation, Milo walked to the display, adjusted the rendering, and demonstrated exactly what pedestrians would see through the glass after sunset. 5 minutes later, the room had stopped looking at Dash for permission to listen. They were looking at Milo. Better still, Dash let them. He did not interrupt. He did not translate Milo's expertise into alpha authority. He sat back, watched, and allowed Milo to win the room himself. When the revised plan was approved, the engineering director offered Milo his card and asked whether he consulted independently. Milo accepted it with professional calm. Only after they entered the hallway did he grin. "Try not to look so pleased with yourself," Dash said. "I just corrected 6 people who make more money than I do. I have earned this." 5. "What? 5 make more than you." Milo stopped walking. "How would you know what I make?" Dash also stopped. For the first time all morning, the The terrifying chief executive looked caught. Your rate was on the proposal. You read my proposal? Obviously. Why obviously? Dash's gaze held his for half a second too long. Because your work matters. Milo forgot his next sarcastic response. Fortunately, nausea arrived to rescue him from emotional competence. His stomach rolled without warning. He pressed 2 fingers against his wrist, an old habit he barely noticed. Dash noticed. Of course he did. But instead of announcing it to the hallway, he stepped between Milo and the approaching employees, opened an unused office, and said casually, I need 5 minutes. The employees vanished. Dash placed water on the desk and lowered the blinds against the harsh morning glare. He never asked whether Milo was all right. He simply sat across the room and answered emails while Milo breathed through it. That somehow made the kindness worse. You do this with everyone? Milo asked eventually. Dash looked up. Do what? Pretend you are not taking care of them so they do not get embarrassed. Dash considered that. No. One word. Ridiculously effective. Milo drank his water to avoid answering. On the drive home, Dash's phone rang repeatedly. Milo caught fragments about investors, a delayed acquisition, and a board dinner Dash was apparently expected to attend. Then another message appeared on the dashboard display before Dash dismissed it. Family office, succession review moved to Friday. Milo looked away before it became snooping, but the phrase stayed with him. He had always imagined Dash's wealth as freedom. Lately it looked more like an extremely expensive cage. That night, Milo found him standing alone beside the penthouse windows at 3 a.m, still dressed in his shirt and slacks, staring down at Manhattan. Do billionaires not sleep? Milo asked. I am not a billionaire. My apologies. Do deeply irritating almost billionaires not sleep? Dash gave a tired laugh, and the sound startled Milo more than anger would have. Board meeting tomorrow. You hate board meetings? I hate disappointing people who already decided what I am supposed to become. Milo leaned against the kitchen island. Suddenly, the succession message made sense without needing explanation. You know what your problem is? Dash glanced over. I assume you have a list. You turn everything into logistics. Work, pregnancy, people. If you are worried, you make a plan. If you are scared, you make a spreadsheet. Dash's expression changed. Milo continued more softly. Maybe that is why you always sound like you are negotiating when you are actually scared. For several seconds, Dash said nothing. Then he laughed. Really laughed. Head lowered, shoulders finally losing their permanent tension. Milo stared because he had never seen that version of him. Dash looked younger. Warmer. Human. You are incredibly annoying, Dash said. You invited me to live here. Our mothers did. You gave me the key. That stopped them both. The penthouse went quiet. Dash looked toward Milo's studio, toward the samples slowly colonizing his immaculate home, then back at Milo. Keep it, he said. Milo frowned. For 9 months. Dash hesitated. For as long as you need it. Something small and dangerous shifted inside Milo. Trust, perhaps. Not enough to erase years of rivalry. Enough to make leaving someday feel unexpectedly different. Then Dash's phone lit up again. He looked at the message, silenced it, and placed the phone face down. What are you doing? Milo asked. Ignoring my board. For me. Dash walked toward the kitchen. Do not become unbearable about it. You are hungry. Milo followed him, smiling despite himself. For the first time since moving in, he was not wondering how he would survive 9 months with Dash O'Rourke. He was wondering what would happen if 9 months turned out to be enough time to know him. The first real fight happened because Milo refused to cancel a presentation. 3 weeks after the hotel meeting, his pregnancy was beginning to show beneath fitted shirts. His nausea had improved, and the lighting project he had chased for nearly a year had finally invited him to present before its selection committee. Milo had spent 6 months building the proposal. Dash took one look at the schedule on the kitchen counter and said, 6 hours on site is too much. Milo slowly lowered his coffee. Good morning to you too. Your doctor said fatigue could become an issue. Could become. Not has become. Dash folded his arms. Move the presentation. Absolutely not. The old rivalry returned so quickly, it almost felt comfortable. Almost. Milo. Dash. I am trying to keep you safe. And I am trying to remain a person. That landed. Milo hated how sharp his voice sounded, but he hated the fear beneath it more. Everyone meant well. His mother wanted him resting. Clients had begun asking. whether he planned to take a long leave. Even strangers saw his pregnancy before they saw him. Milo could handle exhaustion. What frightened him was watching his identity shrink around something he genuinely loved. This project existed before the baby, he said. I worked for it before I moved here. I need something in my life that is still mine. Dash went silent. Milo expected another argument. Instead, Dash uncrossed his arms. What would make the day manageable? Milo blinked. What? Not what would make me comfortable. What would make it possible for you? The distinction changed everything. They built a plan together. Milo chose the schedule. Dash arranged transportation only after asking permission. Milo packed food and medication. Dash added the clinic number to his phone and promised not to interfere unless Milo asked. 2 days later, Milo walked into the presentation alone. Dash stayed in the lobby. That mattered. The committee did not need to see a powerful alpha standing behind Milo before deciding whether his work deserved respect. For 40 minutes, Milo explained how layered lighting could transform the historic building without flattening its original character. He answered budget questions, defended his energy projections, and corrected a consultant who underestimated the installation requirements. Halfway through, one committee member glanced at Milo's stomach and asked whether his personal circumstances might affect delivery. Milo smiled politely. My project schedule includes contingency coverage, documented handoffs, and remote review capability. If you are asking whether pregnancy has changed my ability to design, the presentation you just watched is my answer. Nobody asked again. Milo won the contract. He held himself together through handshakes, congratulations, and the elevator ride downstairs. Then the doors opened, and he saw Dash sitting alone in the lobby with 2 untouched coffees. Dash stood immediately. He searched Milo's face once. Well, Milo tried to remain dignified. He lasted perhaps 2 seconds. I got it. Dash's entire expression changed. The smile was small, but the pride behind it was not. Of course you did. Milo laughed. You could sound slightly surprised. Why would I be surprised? Dash handed him 1 coffee, then remembered and took it back. That is mine. Yours is decaf. Milo stared at the corrected cup now in his hand. You remembered. Dash looked almost offended. I remember things about you. The sentence followed Milo all the way home. The real pressure arrived that evening. Dash's mother had invited them to a small family dinner at a private club, supposedly to celebrate Milo's contract. Milo realized within 5 minutes that several Rourke family advisors had also been invited. One older board member congratulated Dash on getting everything organized, and then turned toward Milo. You must be relieved. Dashiell can provide enough that you will not have to worry about working anymore. Milo felt his victory from that afternoon shrink into something ornamental. Before he could answer, Dash set down his glass. His voice remained perfectly calm. Milo does not work because he needs my permission or my money. The table went quiet. The man chuckled awkwardly. I only meant that with a child coming, priorities change. His priorities are his decision. Dash did not raise his voice. Somehow that made everyone listen harder. He won a major design contract today against established firms. If we are celebrating him, then we are going to celebrate what he actually accomplished. Milo looked at him. Dash was courteous to everyone else at the table, almost cold in his precision. Yet when Milo's water glass emptied, Dash replaced it without interrupting the conversation. When Milo became tired, Dash noticed before Milo said anything and quietly asked, "Ready?" Not telling. Asking. Milo nodded. Dash stood immediately, abandoning dessert, 2 board members, and a conversation he had apparently been expected to finish. Outside, Milo stopped beneath the club awning. You did not have to do that. Dash looked puzzled. Do what? Choose my side in there. Dash's expression hardened, but not at Milo. There should not have been sides. There always are with families like yours. Then they can learn. Milo looked away because gratitude suddenly felt too vulnerable. You are becoming inconveniently decent. Do not spread that around. I have a reputation. Milo laughed, and Dash smiled back. For one quiet second, standing beneath the Manhattan lights, Milo understood something that frightened him more than their arguments ever had. He no longer felt alone inside this pregnancy. Dash was not simply nearby. He was beside him. Then Dash's phone buzzed. He read the message, and the warmth disappeared from his face. What happened? Milo asked. Dash hesitated. The board moved the succession review again. Because you left dinner? Because I keep leaving things for you. Milo's chest tightened. Dash, I never asked you to risk your company. I know. Dash looked at him with an intensity Milo could not dismiss as responsibility anymore. That is the problem. The car arrived, but neither man moved. For the first time, Milo realized Dash was not only making room for him in the penthouse. He was making room for him in a life where every inch had already been claimed by someone else's expectations, and sooner or later, someone was going to demand that Dash choose. For 3 days after the club dinner, Dash behaved as if nothing had changed. That was Milo's first warning. He still left ginger tea beside Milo's laptop before early meetings. He still knocked before entering the connecting bedroom. He still listened when Milo complained that the penthouse lighting made expensive furniture look clinically depressed. But his phone never stopped vibrating, and every time the word succession review appeared, Dash turned the screen face down. On Friday morning, Milo found 2 men in dark suits waiting outside the private elevator. They greeted Dash with careful formality, then fell silent when Milo entered the room. What is going on? Milo asked. Board meeting, Dash said. Your board meetings require security now. They are not security. One of the men cleared his throat. Dash gave him a look, and the man immediately reconsidered speaking. Milo folded his arms. That was extremely convincing. Dash rubbed the bridge of his nose. They are representatives from the family office. The same family office from the message Milo had seen weeks ago. The same succession review Dash kept avoiding. Something had never fit. Dash owned the penthouse, commanded entire floors of employees, and carried the Rourke name like a burden rather than a privilege. Milo had assumed the board wanted to promote him. He had been wrong. The truth arrived that afternoon in the least dramatic way possible, inside a thick folder left open on the kitchen island. Milo had not meant to read it. Then he saw Dash's name beside one phrase that made his stomach drop. Controlling interest transfer. Milo stepped back as if the paper had become hot. Dash entered 10 minutes later and stopped when he saw the folder. Neither man pretended. You are inheriting control of Rourke Development, Milo said. Dash set down his briefcase. Eventually. Do not do that. Do what? Make something enormous sound like a scheduling problem. Milo pointed at the folder. Your succession review is not about whether you get some executive promotion. Your family is transferring control of the company to you. Dash was silent. That silence hurt more than denial. Milo laughed once, without humor. How long were you planning to wait before telling me? I did not know if I was accepting it. That is not an answer. Since before you moved in. Milo stared at him. Suddenly, every canceled meeting, every tense family dinner, every call Dash ignored made terrible sense. And your board is upset because you keep changing your schedule for me. Partly. Dash's jaw tightened. They want stability before the transfer. Predictability. A public life that reassures investors. Milo felt cold. And then a pregnant Omega moved into your penthouse. Milo, was I part of that discussion? Dash did not answer quickly enough. Milo's chest tightened. Were they discussing me? Yes. One word. Honest and devastating. Milo stepped away. You let me walk into that club without telling me those people were evaluating whether I complicated your succession. I wanted them nowhere near you. They were already near me. I was sitting at their table. Dash moved forward, then stopped himself. That is why I kept it separate. My family has spent my entire life turning relationships into assets and liabilities. I did not want you becoming another column in one of their reports. So you decided what I could handle. Dash flinched. Milo saw it and hated that part of him still cared. You promised not to manage me. I was trying to protect you. By withholding information that directly affected me. The words landed between them. Dash looked toward the windows. When I was 23, my father gave me a list of people I should stop seeing because they were considered bad for the family name. Friends. Someone I was dating. He called it preparation. His voice remained controlled, but his hands had tightened at his sides. I promised myself nobody I cared about would ever be put through that again. Milo's anger faltered, but it did not disappear. Now he understood the cage. He also understood why Dash had built walls around it. I am sorry they did that to you, Milo said quietly. But you do not protect me by choosing ignorance for me. Dash looked at him then, and Milo saw the exact moment he understood the damage. You are right. No defense. No negotiation. Somehow that made Milo's eyes burn. He turned away and noticed something else. The hallway lights were warmer. The harsh fixtures he had complained about were gone. He walked toward the nursery and stopped. Dash had changed those too. Milo's sketches were pinned carefully beside the samples. When did you do this? Last week. Why? Because you were right about the apartment. Dash hesitated. It looked impressive. It never felt like home. Milo looked at him. Dash's voice softened. Then you moved in. That was the real reveal, more frightening than the inheritance. Dash had been changing his home around Milo while hiding the one truth that could change whether Milo wanted to remain inside it. Milo swallowed. I need space. Dash went still. Are you leaving? Not tonight. We made commitments about the baby, and I am not running from those. Milo looked toward the connecting bedrooms. But I am moving into the guest room on the other side of the penthouse. The hurt on Dash's face was immediate, though he tried to hide it. Milo understood now that Dash had never hated him. He understood that the coldness, the control, even the relentless planning came from a man terrified of letting other people decide what love was allowed to cost him. But understanding someone was not the same as trusting him. That evening, Milo carried his pillow down the hallway. Dash did not stop him. He only stood beside the kitchen island, surrounded by a home he had quietly changed for Milo, while the distance between their bedrooms became the first boundary money, power, and careful planning could not fix. For 4 days, Dash respected the distance Milo had asked for so carefully that it became painful. He knocked before entering any room Milo was using. He stopped asking about appointments unless they concerned the baby. He left breakfast in the kitchen without waiting to see whether Milo ate it. Most importantly, he did not try to purchase forgiveness with flowers, gifts, or some spectacular gesture only Dash O'Rourke could afford. Instead, Milo began receiving forwarded emails, board schedules, family office requests, documents mentioning him. Every message came with the same sentence: you decide what you want to know. It was the first thing Dash had done that actually addressed what he had broken. Milo did not forgive him immediately, but he read every email. On Thursday evening, Milo worked late at a client site while rain hammered Manhattan hard enough to turn the windows silver. By the time he finished, his back ached and the car service he had booked canceled because of flooding. He considered calling Dash. His thumb hovered over the name for nearly a minute before Pride won. Then a message appeared. Weather alert says your area is flooding. Do you need a ride? Not, I am coming. Not stay there. A question. Milo stared at it before typing. Yes. Dash arrived 20 minutes later himself, without a driver. He stepped from the car carrying an umbrella large enough for 2 people and walked across the sidewalk through ankle-deep water. You own waterproof shoes? Milo asked as Dash held the umbrella over him. I contain multitudes. Milo almost smiled. Dash opened the passenger door, waited until Milo was seated, then circled back. Through the rain. Only when he climbed behind the wheel did Milo notice that one shoulder of Dash's coat was soaked. Milo's side was completely dry. Neither mentioned it. Halfway home, traffic stopped. Milo shifted uncomfortably, exhausted. Dash noticed, reached toward the climate controls, then paused. Would warmer help? Milo nodded. That tiny question hurt in a completely different way. You are trying very hard, Milo said. Dash kept his eyes on the road. I am trying differently. Silence settled between them. Then Dash added, my father used to call control responsibility. I believed him for a long time. Milo waited. Dash rarely volunteered anything about himself. When I was 12, he chose my school. At 18, my major. At 23, who belonged in my life. Every decision came with the same explanation. He knew what was best because he had more information. Dash gave a humorless laugh. I spent years becoming everything I hated about that, only with better intentions. Milo looked at him. Intentions matter. Not enough. No. Not enough. Dash nodded, accepting it. I was afraid the board would reduce you to the pregnancy. I was more afraid you would see what my life actually looks like and decide you wanted no part of it. There it was. Not strategy. Fear. Milo had spent years thinking Dash feared nothing except losing. Now he understood that Dash feared being known and then left. I am still angry, Milo said. You should be. And I am not moving back into the connecting room. I know, but I understand why you did it. Dash's hands tightened briefly around the steering wheel. That is more than I expected. When they reached the penthouse, Milo was too tired to eat. He sat on the couch while Dash reheated soup, placed crackers beside it, then retreated toward his office. Dash. He stopped. Milo nodded toward the other end of the couch. You can sit down. I am angry, not contagious. Dash sat, leaving almost 3 feet between them. They ate in silence while rain streaked the windows. Halfway through the bowl, the baby moved sharply enough that Milo froze. Dash immediately leaned forward. What happened? Nothing. He moved. Dash's expression changed. Wonder replaced alarm so completely that Milo felt his own defenses shift. Dash looked at Milo's stomach, then deliberately looked away. He did not ask to touch. Milo noticed that too. After a moment, Milo reached across the space between them, took Dash's hand, and placed it gently against the side of his sweater. Dash became perfectly still. Another movement came. His breath caught. The man who could silence conference rooms with one look whispered, "That was him." Milo smiled despite himself. "Unless I swallowed a very ambitious goldfish." Dash laughed softly, but his eyes had gone bright. He kept his hand exactly where Milo had placed it, no farther. For one quiet minute, there was no board, no inheritance, no arrangement made by their mothers. Just two frightened men listening to the future announce itself with tiny movements. Later, Milo returned to the guest room. His boundary remained. But before closing the door, he said, "My appointment is Tuesday." Dash looked up from the hallway. "I know. Come with me." Hope crossed Dash's face before he could hide it. "Are you sure?" Milo nodded. "I am." The next morning, that fragile peace met its first consequence. An email from the family office arrived in both their inboxes. The board had scheduled a formal reception for the following week, and Milo's attendance had been specifically requested. Dash appeared in the kitchen seconds later, furious. "You do not have to go." Milo read the message again. A week earlier, he might have let Dash shield him from the entire room. Now he closed the laptop and met his eyes. "No, this time they do not discuss me without me." Dash studied him, then gave one slow nod. "Then we go together." The reception looked less like a family event and more like a room designed to decide who belonged in Dash's future. Milo understood that before he reached the first table. The private club was filled with Rourke executives, investors, attorneys, and relatives who smiled at Dash with practiced warmth before letting their eyes drift toward Milo's stomach. Dash stayed beside him without hovering. When Milo slowed, Dash slowed. When someone tried to direct Milo toward a quieter seating area, Dash said, "He is with me," and kept walking. It should have made Milo feel safer. Instead, the attention sharpened. Then Everett Sloan approached. Milo recognized him as the board member from the dinner, the one who had suggested Milo would no longer need a career once Dash could provide for him. Everett smiled pleasantly. "Mr. Serrano, congratulations on your recent contract." "Thank you. Remarkable timing." Milo heard the implication immediately. Dash did too. "Everett," he said, warning threaded beneath the name. Everett merely lifted his glass. "I am complimenting him." The formal presentation began 20 minutes later. Dash was called toward the front with several board members, while Milo remained near the center of the room. Then a large screen behind the podium changed. Instead of succession figures, it displayed a document. Milo recognized his own name before he understood anything else. Residential Support and Maternal Care Agreement. A murmur moved through the room. Milo's pulse stumbled. Beneath his name were figures for housing, transportation, medical expenses, and a monthly allowance he had never seen. Then came a clause describing his residence in Dash's penthouse as necessary for family continuity during the succession period. Milo stopped breathing. Everett spoke from near the podium. "Since transparency has become such an important subject, the board should understand the arrangement affecting the transfer." Dash turned sharply. "Where did you get that?" "Not, it is false." Milo heard the difference. Everett continued. "The family office prepared it after the pregnancy became known. The concern is obvious. Mr. Serrano receives substantial benefits while Dashiell receives the appearance of domestic stability." Every face in the room seemed to turn toward Milo. Someone whispered, "So he is being paid?" Another voice answered, "That explains the penthouse." Humiliation came hot and immediate. Milo had spent months fighting to remain visible as himself. Designer, professional, person. In less than a minute, he had become exactly what he feared. The pregnant Omega everyone assumed had attached himself to a wealthy alpha. "For security. I have never seen that agreement," Milo said. His voice was steady even when his hands were not. Everett gave him a sympathetic look that felt worse than accusation. Perhaps your attorney handled the details. I do not have an attorney. Milo looked at Dash. Did you know about this? Dash's face had gone frighteningly still. I knew the family office drafted proposals. Milo's stomach dropped. Did you know my name was on one? A pause. Too long. Dash looked toward the screen, then toward one of the attorneys. I need the document history. Milo stared at him. Dash. Milo, give me 1 minute. 1 minute. That was all Dash asked for. But standing beneath a document that made his life look purchased, surrounded by people already prepared to believe the worst, 1 minute felt exactly like abandonment. Did you know? Milo asked again. Dash met his eyes. Pain crossed his face. I knew they wanted an agreement. I rejected it. But you never told me. Dash said nothing. Milo almost laughed because apparently silence was still the one thing capable of undoing everything they had rebuilt. Everett stepped in smoothly. Whatever the private understanding may be, the financial reality remains. Mr. Serrano lives in property owned by the future controlling shareholder, uses company transportation, and has already received professional access through Rourke projects. My work earned that access, Milo snapped. I am sure you believe that. The room blurred at the edges. Milo thought of the hotel meeting, the design review, the contract he had won without Dash in the room, the nights spent working at the dining table. Had everyone else seen those achievements differently because of whose key was in his pocket? Worse, had Dash known they would? Milo looked at him one last time, silently asking for something he could trust. Dash was reading the document now, eyes moving rapidly across the page. He was not defending Milo. Not yet. Milo understood why. Dash was looking for proof. He was doing what Dash always did when frightened, gathering information, building the strongest possible response. But understanding did not make standing there hurt less. Milo removed the brass penthouse key from his pocket and placed it on the nearest table. Dash looked up immediately. Milo, I cannot do this here. Please wait. I spent months believing that when you made room for me, it meant I belonged there. His voice cracked despite his effort. Now half this room thinks I was installed in your apartment as part of a succession strategy, and you knew enough to warn me. Dash stepped toward him. Milo stepped back. That stopped him more effectively than any argument. I need to fix this correctly, Dash said quietly. Then fix it. Milo swallowed hard. But I cannot stand beside you while you decide whether defending me costs too much. He walked out before anyone could see his eyes burn. This time Dash did not follow. Milo hated him for that for exactly 12 seconds. Then he hated himself for hoping he would. By the time Milo reached the sidewalk, cold evening air had replaced the heat of the ballroom, but the humiliation remained. He called a car to his old apartment and rested one hand over the baby as the club doors closed behind him. Upstairs, somewhere beyond those doors, Dash had finally reached the choice everyone had been preparing him for. Company or complication. Succession or scandal. The life chosen for him, or the person he claimed mattered. Milo no longer knew which one Dash would choose. And for the first time since moving into the penthouse, he no longer had its key. Dash did not follow Milo because, for once, he understood that running after him with promises would solve nothing. He turned back toward the ballroom, picked up the brass key Milo had left behind, and asked the family office attorney for the document history. Everett smiled as if the evening had already ended in his favor. It had not. 23 minutes later, Milo's phone rang while he sat in the back of a car halfway to his old apartment. He almost ignored it. The caller was not Dash. It was the Rourke family office attorney. Mr. Serrano, Mr. Rourke has requested that tonight's board session remain open, and he has asked me to provide you access to the records being presented. You are also invited to return, if you choose. Milo closed his eyes. If you choose. Not come back. Not Dash needs you. A choice. Milo told the driver to turn around. When he re-entered the ballroom, the atmosphere had changed completely. The party was over. Dash stood beside the presentation screen with several attorneys and the company's compliance director. Everett remained near the board table, no longer smiling. Dash saw Milo but did not approach him. He simply pulled out an empty chair near the front and left the decision to Milo. Milo sat. The document displayed earlier was real, Dash began. A murmur moved through the room, but the story attached to it was not. He displayed the document history. The family office had drafted the agreement shortly after learning about the pregnancy. Dash had rejected it the same day. His written response appeared beside it. Milo Serrano is not an employee, asset, dependent, or condition of succession. No agreement concerning his residence or pregnancy will be executed without his knowledge and independent consent. Milo's throat tightened. Dash had protected his autonomy then. He had simply made the devastating mistake of protecting him silently. Dash changed the screen again. The version shown tonight removed the rejection page and displayed proposed benefits as if they had been accepted. The compliance director confirmed the file had been exported using Everett's board credentials that afternoon. Everett stiffened. I presented material prepared by the family office. You presented an incomplete document after removing the page that disproved your claim, Dash said. His voice never rose. Then you implied Milo received compensation he never accepted. Everett tried another angle. The broader concern remains. His presence creates uncertainty around succession. Dash looked at him with almost frightening calm. Then let me remove the uncertainty. An attorney placed a folder in front of him. Dash signed it. Several board members exchanged startled looks. Effective tonight, I am suspending the succession transfer. Milo forgot to breathe. Everett stared. You would delay controlling interest over this? No. I am delaying it because a board willing to weaponize a private pregnancy against someone who has no corporate role is not a board I am willing to inherit without reform. Dash slid the signed papers toward counsel. Compliance will conduct an independent review of tonight's disclosure. Everett will step away from the succession committee while that review is pending. The consequence came not from Dash's anger, but from Everett's own records, his own access, his own decision to manipulate the document. Then Dash turned toward the room. There is something else everyone here should understand. His eyes found Milo. Milo lives with me because our mothers pushed two stubborn men into the same penthouse when we were both terrified. That part began with circumstance. A few nervous smiles appeared. Dash did not smile. Everything after that was choice. He gestured toward the hotel plans displayed on another screen. Milo identified a design failure my own team missed. He earned his place at that review. He won his current contract without me in the presentation room. His career does not exist because of my name. Dash paused. If anything, my company has already benefited from his. Milo felt months of humiliation loosen inside his chest. Dash was not calling him brave because he was pregnant. He was not calling him special because he carried Dash's child. He was naming the work Milo had done before any of this happened. Everett looked away first. Dash continued, quieter now. And I owe Milo one truth publicly because my silence hurt him publicly. I knew my family wanted an agreement. I rejected it, but I did not tell him. I thought withholding the problem would protect him. I was wrong. He took the brass key from his pocket and placed it on the table in front of Milo. I will never make that decision for him again. Milo stared at it. The same key that once represented 9 months of obligation now meant something entirely different. Nobody told him to pick it up. So he did. Not because he needed Dash's penthouse. Not because he needed Rourke money. Not because a room full of powerful people had finally decided he was respectable. Milo stood and faced Everett himself. For the record, I never accepted an allowance. I paid my own business expenses. My design contracts are mine. And I am done allowing anyone to describe independence as ingratitude simply because accepting help sometimes makes them uncomfortable. Then he turned to Dash. And I am still angry with you. A tiny, relieved laugh moved through the room. Dash almost smiled. I know. Good. Milo slipped the key into his pocket. Take me home. Something broke open in Dash's expression. Not victory. Relief. Outside, beneath the city lights, Dash opened the car door for him, but Milo stopped before getting in. You delayed the succession. Yes. Because of me? Dash shook his head. Because being with you finally made me understand that inheriting my father's power is worthless if I inherit his way of using it. Milo looked at him for a long moment. Then he reached for Dash's hand. No audience. No contract. No obligation. Dash closed his fingers around Milo's carefully. They had won something that night, but not the ending. The baby would arrive soon. The 9 months would end. And for the first time, Milo understood the question waiting beyond them. When nobody could force them to share a home anymore, would they still choose one? The baby arrived 3 weeks later on a bright October morning. And for once, Dash O'Rourke had no plan capable of controlling anything. Milo found that deeply satisfying. Dash had prepared the hospital bag, memorized the route to the medical center, moved every meeting off his calendar, and created an emergency contact list so detailed that Milo had threatened to throw it out the penthouse window. None of it mattered when Milo reached for his hand and said, "Stay." Dash stayed. Hours later, when their son was finally sleeping safely beside them, Milo watched Dash stand near the hospital window with tears he was making absolutely no effort to hide. The man who once answered fear with schedules had learned how to simply feel it. Milo reached toward him. Dash crossed the room immediately and took his hand. "He is perfect," Dash whispered. "He looks furious. He is a Serrano." That explains it. Milo laughed until exhaustion turned it into something softer. 6 weeks later, they returned from an appointment to find both mothers waiting in the penthouse with food, baby clothes, and expressions of unbearable satisfaction. "Do not say it," Milo warned. His mother smiled. "I said nothing. Your face said it." Dash looked at Milo. Milo looked at Dash. Together they said, "You planned this." Their mothers denied everything badly. For the first time, the penthouse felt completely alive. Bottles stood beside Dash's immaculate coffee machine. Milo's lighting samples covered half the dining table again. A bassinet occupied the space where an expensive sculpture had once stood. The nursery glowed each evening beneath the warm layered lighting Milo had designed, and Dash had stopped calling any of it clutter. Milo's career had not disappeared either. His new contract was progressing well, and when Rourke Development later requested his consultation on another property, Dash removed himself from the selection process before Milo even asked. "Conflict of interest," Dash explained. Milo had smiled because that was what change looked like with Dash. Not promises. Systems rebuilt around better choices. Then, one Sunday afternoon, Milo opened his closet and saw the suitcase. The same suitcase he had carried into the penthouse months earlier. Their original arrangement was over. The pregnancy was over. The medical reason for living 15 minutes from the clinic was gone. Nobody could reasonably claim Milo needed to remain here anymore. He packed slowly, not because he wanted to leave, but because he needed to know what staying meant when there was nothing forcing it. Dash found him near the front door with the suitcase beside his leg. He stopped. Months earlier, he would have solved the problem before asking what Milo wanted. Now he only said, "Are you leaving?" Milo looked at him. Our 9 months ended. Pain crossed Dash's face, but he nodded. They did. He did not mention the baby. He did not offer money. He did not remind Milo that this home was easier or safer. Instead, Dash reached into his pocket and removed the brass key. The same key Milo had once left on a table when he believed he had been reduced to an arrangement. Dash placed it in Milo's palm. "Your choice this time." Milo stared down at it. In the beginning, that key had felt like evidence that his life was no longer entirely his. Now Dash was giving it back without conditions. "What happens if I leave?" Milo asked. Dash swallowed. "I help raise our son. I respect your work. I show up when you want me there, and I stay out when you do not. And us." That was harder. Dash looked at him with none of the certainty that intimidated entire boardrooms. "I want an us. But I do not want one you stayed in because our mothers cornered you, because we have a child, or because my home is convenient." He took a breath. "I want you to stay because you choose me. If you cannot, I will still be grateful that you taught me how to stop confusing love with control." Milo felt his eyes burn. 9 months earlier, he had sat alone in a clinic terrified that pregnancy would take his independence, his career, and the future he had fought to build. Somehow the man he feared would control that future had become the person who protected Milo's right to choose it. Milo looked toward the nursery. Their son was sleeping beneath the light Milo had designed. His drawings were scattered across the dining table. Dash's jacket hung beside Milo's coat. Nothing about the place looked temporary anymore. Milo set the suitcase upright. Dash's face fell. Milo pushed it away from the door. "I said 9 months, then I was gone." Dash stared at the suitcase, then back at him. "I remember." Milo slipped the key onto his key ring. "I changed my mind." For perhaps the first time in his life, Dash Rourke was completely speechless. Milo laughed and stepped closer. Dash did not reach for him until Milo reached first. Their foreheads rested together in the quiet entryway, neither man needing to turn the moment into a promise larger than the one they were already making. "Stay? Choose. Try again tomorrow." From the nursery came a small, indignant cry. Dash closed his eyes. Your son is angry. Our son. Dash smiled. Our son. They walked toward the nursery together, leaving the suitcase by the door. Months ago, Milo had entered that penthouse believing the greatest thing he could protect was his independence. Now he understood something better. Freedom was not having nobody to need. Freedom was being able to leave, knowing your worth either way, and finding someone who made staying feel like your own decision.